Roger, Shannon, still here. We got movement on the bug line?
Roger that. Roger that. Have your room guys stand by.
Alright, LDZ, gun 3 is ready. Shelter, peel up apart, charge 7 field time, 1 round. Deflection 5246, time 72.6, quarter 1161. Roger, check 3.
Hello,
Mr. President.
when are you leaving for California?
Oh, I'll be back tomorrow. I'll be coming back tonight right after your broadcast.
Oh, you're going out with us?
I'll come out. I'm spending the day in Washington tomorrow.
Oh, I see.
Very full schedule.
Oh, I see. Mm-hmm. I thought you were going to go out there so that you could be out there tomorrow. Well, then I'm not going till 5:30. Well, so you can.
Yeah, that's.
can go out with us.
I want to have a meeting on the Laos situation and just get everything gone over.
We're having Smith in tomorrow, right?
That's right, Mr. President.
Fine.
And I have a talking paper for you. And I could come in for a few minutes before. And I think he should be kept on a tight leash until Dobrynin gets back.
Right.
But we can give him a few things that will keep him busy for 2 weeks.
Yeah. He'd be going to Vienna?
He'll be going to Vienna.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if he, there's one technical point. We had stated the limits on submarine missiles in terms of numbers of submarines, and he would like to do it in terms of the total number of missiles, regardless of how many each submarine carries.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually a rather good proposal.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, rather than say the limit is 41 submarines, we would say 600 missiles or whatever the figure is.
Right.
And if he can make that concession, and also he should say that the treaty, that the ABM thing should be a treaty and the other an executive agreement, those would be 2 things that would keep him busy.
Right. Good. Okay, on this stuff that I'm preparing, there's nothing particularly, a couple of points that came to mind as I was reading here today was they might dig in on the point as to how long, leaving out Vietnam, our air activities in Laos will continue. Of course, I understand how to answer all the Laos questions, that we don't have any ground combat people there,
Right.
And we understand that it began long before and the like, but and they might add, or Laos and Cambodia. So what's your suggestion on that?
Well,
we know what we're going to do. The question is, what do we tell them?
Well, my suggestion is to put it on the infiltration.
Yeah, but after we're gone, I mean, assuming we have, assuming that we have, you see there, the separation of South Vietnam from the rest. I mean, infiltration we justify on the basis of the threats to Americans and so forth. Well, we can probably keep.
I would try to avoid it.
You see, the problem, of course, is this: to what extent are we going to commit ourselves for the defense of Cambodia and the defense of Laos, as distinct from Vietnam and Vietnamization? See, that's the critical question. That's which any smart guy will ask.
That's right. On the other hand, the 2 are, of course, related. And I think the point to make is we are committed to the defense, to Vietnamization, and we do those activities that are related to it. I mean, I would not, but if you say flatly we are not committed to we are not going to do anything for the defense of Cambodia, we just may invite an attack this year. That's the dilemma we have.
Oh, I understand. That's the problem. Well, you can probably do it.
Whatever my assessment is worth, I think, Mr. President, that they are getting themselves into the same posture as they did at the time of Tet. The except they don't have the capabilities. They're going to try to do to us in Cambodia and Laos.
Yeah.
In my view, they will certainly do something on the negotiating front this year. They are not going to gamble in an election as close as this on one party.
Well, you would think so, yeah.
That is not their style.
With regard to another thing, India and Pakistan, the movement of the carrier force, how much do we want to leave the thought that that was being moved for other contingencies than evacuation?
Oh, I would say this was because the situation was deteriorating so rapidly that we just didn't know what contingencies involving American lives might be involved.
Leave it on the...
I would leave it on that, Mr.
On the
President.
Evacuation thing.
Right.
Yeah, well, the talking people here...
On India, Pakistan, John Freeman, I don't know whether I told you, who was ambassador in India for 4 years, told Henry Brandon that in his view, India moved towards Russia deliberately in '67. That in his view, we were absolutely right, that we didn't do anything to drive them over. Actually, when you read that speech of Mrs. Gandhi, that's fairly plaintive. That isn't all that aggressive.
Yeah.
And the question I always ask people is, what is it that the Indians are going to do now that they didn't do before?
Yeah.
I mean, when they say we've been squeezed out of the subcontinent, how?
I mean, because India will now say they don't want our aid, is that it?
They won't say that.
Yeah, well, that's the whole... It's ridiculous. Of course, they're not going to say that. And the point is we have nothing else there. Yeah.
And I think the answer one should give is that India is a proud and great country and it will pursue an independent policy based on its own self-interest.
Oh, well, the India-Pakistan things don't worry me. I'm not going to... No, our people don't give a goddamn about it. So
I think that's right.
we're not going to... Just going to finesse them very easily. Very easily. In regard to the amnesty question for Vietnam, for deserters, it occurs to me that that we might approach that in terms of as you know, I'm flatly positioned that we do nothing now, but I think we have to position it in terms that we do nothing until our involvement in Vietnam is completed and the prisoners of war are returned. And then, of course, we can consider those matters on their merits. Isn't that the way to handle it?
That's right. I think perhaps one could put it on the basis of saying then will come in any event a time in which we have to look at the whole situation of what the war meant to us and so forth.
But not until it's over.
No, I don't see how we can, Mr.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Somebody told me that Taft was going to put in some amnesty resolution this year, but it won't get off of first base, in my opinion. Not with these, not with POWs over there. Boy, that would be a tragedy.
I think that's right.
Okay, all right. What else is new? Anything that you see in the...
Everything. I've checked the Situation Room this morning. Everything is quiet. There's some shelling in the Long Tien area, but that's not worse.
Well, we can't live and die about Laos every week, Henry. We've done this for 3 years, 6 years. And you know what I mean? I've been reading this and Long Tien and the Flame de Jars and so forth, and everybody mopes about it. But we do the best we can, and that's all we do. And that's what we're doing now.
Exactly. Well, and I think if you are asked about the defeat in northern Laos, I think that's the answer to give, is to say, let's take this in perspective. This has been going back and forth across the Plain de Char with stories of defeats every January and stories of victory every July. A great deal of it is dictated by the weather.
Yeah, that's right. I'm not concerned about that. Okay, fine, thank you.
Right, Mr. President.
Hello?
After Kissinger, sir.
Hello?
Hello, Henry?
Mr. President.
Well, since you got back, have you been infected yet with the Washington virus?
Not yet, Mr. President. I think we're on the right course. I've read the speech over, and I think it is very strong now.
Yeah, it's a pretty good speech, actually.
I think it's an excellent speech.
Yeah, it's got a lot of tone. Let me say that I think it's important. I told Rose to tell Buchanan that you have the same thing, that both you and Buchanan say you don't know what the hell's going to be in it.
Right.
I think it's very important to do that for the reason that I might change it. And second, I just think it's just as well to know that, because I know that, we get the usual staff jitteriness and Congress and all the rest saying to do this and that and the other thing, and I understand all that. They're all, wobbling around, and hell, I'm just not going to let them think they affected me one way or the other.
Absolutely.
And because I know, the point is that the fellows they may think they tell me things I don't know, but I'm aware of all these things. I mean, I know them more deeply than they do, but so it is.
Well, John Calley called this evening, and he had a number of hot ideas. But that is a syndrome of all people who just leave the news field.
Mm-hmm.
They want to do it the other way, the traditional way.
What is his idea? Just to...
Well, he doesn't have a concrete idea. He just wants some sort of smashing announcement that would diffuse everything.
Well, now, what the hell would we do? You mean like announce we're going to get out tomorrow or end all combat?
He admits he doesn't know what it is.
Mm-hmm. Can't be done.
And it can't be done.
I think November 3rd. It's just in that respect, it's like November 3rd because basically, whether it's we'll listen to him later, but the point is that at this point we cannot just do something that we know isn't gonna wash. That's all there is to it.
I talked to Gum, and he said he's become totally convinced that if we appeal to the doves, we'll be destroyed.
Huh.
And he said he read the World Report. He had to give a speech at the Federal City Club. He thinks your foreign policy holds together, and it's got a good philosophical foundation, and we should fight for it.
Yeah.
And that coming from him, since his instinct the other way, is particularly interesting, I think.
Well, we're not going to go. We'll play, incidentally. Once we get something to play with, if we get anything from Dobrynin or anything like that, we'll then go to John and Calley, and by God, we'll broker the hell out of it. We got to do a better job of doing it.
But then we do it to destroy the doves.
But not for the purpose of catering to them. This idea that you can diffuse them is bull. It will not work.
I agree completely.
I know, for example, John Ehrlichman, was raising the credibility problem today, on various things, and he was doing it, at the best of feelings. And I said, well, John, I said, there, and he wasn't trying to advocate a change, but he says there is a problem. Hell, I know there's a problem, but it's not what we've done, it's what they've created.
That's right.
What the hell have we done that is the only stupid thing we did, actually, when you look at Laos, the only stupid thing was that goddamn blackout, which I didn't order, but
we thought would end within 24 hours.
Well,
if it had ended within 24 hours, no one would have paid any attention to it.
I know. Well,
no, Abrams in this whole operation has been a disaster. Got great credit, but he's not been good on that.
Well, anyway, the point is that having happened, while it is true that if you read the polls and everything else, there is a credibility and about us. They don't believe us. They don't. There's a lack of confidence in the conduct of the war and so forth. That is no reason to cave. We just state it out there the best we can and hope for the best.
It is
because if we start simpering around and catering to these bastards, hell, they'll just eat us alive. And the government sees that, doesn't he?
Absolutely. In fact, and he came to this conclusion entirely by himself, and as you can imagine, against his first instinct.
Well, I would, when you're talking tomorrow to the staff, because I won't see them, I would take a line where you're concerned. Why don't you appear to be a little dovish? Just say, gee whiz, I don't know what he's going to do. He's done what he's done and did before. He's thinking about it himself. He's going to make his own decision, and I can't predict at all what he's going to do.
Absolutely.
I'd just keep him guessing, and And if they wail and gone around saying, now look, you can wail all you want, but he's the guy that's going to do this, and that I've considered all their views, and all the rest. I mean, Schultz and Ehrlichman and, McGregor and Rumsfeld and Finch and all the rest, they don't know a goddamn thing about this. They don't know what it's about.
And they don't know what we'll be hit with if this whole thing comes apart.
They don't know anything about foreign policy.
Exactly.
They're only concerned about, frankly, peace at any price, really. Because they see, all they're concerned about is, revenue sharing and the environment and all that crap, which doesn't amount to anything, in my opinion.
They want to take off the immediate pressure. This is their overriding concern.
Mm-hmm. Well, the immediate pressure isn't all that heavy.
And that, I don't believe, can be done.
Yeah.
I mean, it can't be done their way, because once you accept the premises of McGovern, you are fighting on his ground. And it wouldn't be in character.
Oh, that's right.
There is one thing, Mr. President, there are two sentences we ought to add.
Yeah.
Because there's this cynical comment that the dogs are now making, especially McGovern, that we are substituting Asian for American casualties and increasing the bombing, and we can do it in two sentences. One, where you speak about reduction in American death, you can say, and South Vietnamese casualties have also dropped by, I think, 50%. I'll get you the exact figure.
And why don't we say that and then put in, and we've reduced our bombing by so much.
And the bombing within South Vietnam has been reduced by 90%, Mr. President.
Yeah, and just, rather than getting into too many figures, just say that we've reduced our bombing by 30% or something like that. Just get it, whatever the figure is for Southeast Asia, so I don't have to get into separating South Vietnam from Laos.
The significance of the 90% is that in the populated areas, our bombing has decreased by 90%. The area we are now bombing is the unpopulated area.
But I know that, but I don't have time to explain that.
I'll get you that.
All we need is just get some figure that makes the point. We can at least try to get that across.
Right. But, so two sentences is what I would recommend in that slide.
And also the South Vietnamese casualties are down.
South Vietnamese casualties, I'm getting the exact...
Even with Laos?
Even with Laos.
Yeah. You even say that, even with the heavy casualties they took in Laos.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Oh, of course, these goddamn dove things, Henry, it's just one thing. They eat you alive, you take one thing, and then they go after another one. And, hell, I've determined to just see it through, and hell with them. And if it fails, it fails. And
well, it's a heroic posture, Mr.
Well, hell, hero or not, the point is that there's no other course for the country.
Yeah.
These people, that's why our domestic side, while I'm interested in their views, why they're irrelevant. They don't know what the hell they're talking about.
That's right.
Now, on the other hand, too, I must say that they are so terribly obsessed with listening to television, reading all of our critics, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and of course I must say the Alsop piece probably disturbs them, but they read all that, and they say, well now, just a minute, is this true? Have we overstayed anything? Haven't we really kept our promises? You see, that's the point. I constantly get back to the fact that I don't think our own people know that enough how to defend us.
That's right. That's right. They are astonished by some of these things, or by what we've accomplished. We've kept our promises. We will have taken out several 100,000, 2/3 of our promises.
No, but they get the impression, or they read the critics, and they get the impression that, damn it, we are lying, and that we are covering up, that there are...
Dr. Kissinger?
Yeah.
Mr. President?
Yeah, hi, Henry.
This was the best speech you've delivered since you've been in office. I don't know. I think November 3rd was better, but we will never have a moment. We'll never have a moment like that again. Well, the November 3rd speech was not well delivered, Mr. President, if you remember.
Yeah.
It was a powerful speech.
Yeah.
This one was really movingly delivered. And I don't know whether you saw the commentary afterwards.
Of course, I don't look at the commentary.
Well,
I don't care what the bastards say.
Well, but this is so amazing. John, first of all, no one was fly-specking it. John Chancellor was very favorable. Everyone is saying a strong man sticking to his guns. carrying out his policy, not being driven off. Dan Rather, very positive. Marvin Kalf, very positive. The only guy who was fly-specking it a little bit is the Pentagon correspondent who had been...
How about Howard Smith? How'd he do? He would not.
At least I didn't see him.
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing. This little speech was a work of art. I mean, I know a little something about speech writing, and by the time we got it down in that little conclusion, I think that was done. And it was no act, because no actor could do it. No actor in Hollywood could have done that well. I thought that was done well, didn't you think?
First of all, no actor could have written it to begin with. You couldn't have done it unless you had meant it.
Yeah. But did that come across? I mean, it was
the President. I had, after all, heard it before.
Yeah.
I had a lump in my throat when I heard it.
Well, you know, it brought a lump to mine, strangely enough. I always did. When I saw that little kid, I almost broke up, in the room that day, and I'll never forget.
I watched it with Haig and Lord, and they...
What did they think?
Absolutely moved and overwhelmed. They said this was tremendous.
Haig, Lord, too?
Lord, too, and...
He's sort of an intellectual, but Haig would...
Well, of course, Haig...
Haig liked our defense of the armed forces, too, didn't he? I really stuck it to him on that.
Very much, and the TV guys, who actually had treated me rather roughly in the question period,
had they?
But gave back exactly what we gave them.
Mm-hmm.
These TV briefings pay off, but above all, you imposed on them a great deal of respect. This, I don't know what others will tell you, but this was the most favorable commentary I've heard, the most respectful one, anyway. And it was...
But you thought, how did it come off in delivery? I didn't look up much.
It was by far the best delivery I've heard you give. It was dignified, strong. It was not ingratiating. If anything can do it, I don't know what the results will be.
Oh, well, we won't do it.
But if it could
be... When I met with those leaders were a miserable lot, weren't they?
Well, Albert is all right, but...
Scott didn't... Well, I meant Scott. Ford's fine, but that goddamn Scott was... And Griffin, sucking around.
Well, Scott, anything you tell Scott, you might as well tell the New York Times.
But I was... after you left, I stuck it to him. I said, look, on that point, I said, the Congress wants to take over, that's fine, but then they take the responsibility for this going down the drain, and that is clear, gentlemen. By God, I'm not going to let them get off of this hook.
Well, it is a disgrace, Mr. President.
Yeah.
You are saving this country. It is...
well, incidentally, let me say, screw the cabinet and the rest, though. As far as I'm concerned, I've made the speech now, and the rest of them, if they like it, fine, but no more sucking around. And from now on, they come to me. Well, I'm sick of the whole bunch.
It's a speech that we can all be proud to have had the privilege to be associated with.
Well, I'm glad you feel that way.
It was also magnificently delivered. It was the best delivery.
The thing at the last was a good idea, wasn't it? To throw away the text
and also the way you put it away was very effective.
I mean, move the papers away.
The papers away.
Took a little time.
John Chancellor said you gave the whole speech without notes.
Yeah.
At the end.
Oh, that's right. Oh, I had no notes at the end.
No. He commented at the end of the...
Yeah, I see.
But he gave an absolutely favorable summary of it.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said,
they're probably afraid Agnew jump on them.
Well, no, this speech was hard to fly-spec, Mr. President.
Well, it's a goddamn good little speech, actually.
Well, deep down, they all know you're right. That's the hell of it.
And they know the other people are just... That's right.
They know that...
And the others are a bunch of goddamn cowards. And they...
Cowards and publicity seekers.
That's right.
I mean, there isn't...
Well, I'll tell you this, though, Henry. You've convinced me, the staff, except for Haldeman and one or two others.
Ehrlichman has been...
Haldeman, Ehrlichman. Well, Schultz is fine, but he's in another league. But the staff generally, screw them. And, they can do their jobs, but no more, nothing more. And as far as the cabinet, except for Connolly, the hell with them. I mean, that's all there is to it.
Well, Mr. President, you've done this one.
Yeah. And if it doesn't work, I don't care. I mean, right now, if it doesn't work, then let me say, though, I'm going to find out soon, and then I'm going to turn right so goddamn hard it'll make your head swim. We'll bomb those bastards right off the earth. I really mean it.
Well,
I think you agree, don't you?
I think, Mr. President, we have to make fundamental decisions.
That's right.
Next in the next
right.
few weeks, seeing what Dobrynin brings back.
That's right. Well, yes. Well, but I mean, assuming he doesn't bring anything back, assuming they don't negotiate, then we turn right hard, Henry.
I think that's right.
And let's teach him. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Night. Yeah.
Dr. Kissinger, sir.
Yeah.
President?
Just wondered if you'd had a chance to get any further reactions, or if you're, or have you been busy?
Well, I've been talking around here, of course. The mood is one of exaltation. I talked to Bill Buckley, who thought it was absolutely outstanding, very moving, very effective, great courage, and of course he wants us to end the draft, which
We're going to do that.
But we're going to do that, and I
tell him we're going to do it.
I told him we're going to do it, and I think, Mr. President, I'm going to put the military to the torch.
Yeah. They're screwing around on this.
They're screwing around. They're worried that it will make the volunteer army not work. But the hell with that, if we can get ourselves breathing space for Vietnam.
Listen, ending the draft gives us breathing space in Vietnam. We'll restore the draft later, but goddammit, the military, they're a bunch of greedy bastards that want more officers' clubs and more men to shine their shoes. The sons of bitches are not interested in this country.
I mean, going to all volunteer in Vietnam is what I mean, is what we ought to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we can put them to the torch, get a figure, and then perhaps announce that in June.
Fine.
I think
okay.
all the reactions that I've gotten, which are mostly...
you haven't talked to the Alsops or the rest, except...
No, I'll give Alsop a call right now.
Give Joe a call. Let me know what he thinks.
And I'll let you know...
But you should have heard from others. They would call you if they thought it was well. Maybe they were too...
No, I never hear.
Give Joe a call. It probably shook him a little to have it emotional, but goddammit, you need a little emotion for this country.
This, Mr. President, was your greatest speech. Whether it has the same impact as some of the others...
No, it won't have, but that's all right.
But this was...
we shook him.
And everybody, it comes across from everybody that he held his course. I don't know whether you have seen the news tickers.
I don't look at that shit.
Well, but he held his course, a strong speech. And I don't know whether anyone has told you about Dan Rather's commentary afterwards.
No.
Now, if we could have written it, it couldn't have been better. He said he promised a withdrawal of 25,000, he withdrew 30,000. He promised a withdrawal of 40,000, he withdrew 50,000. Shows that you've exceeded every promise you've made.
Yeah, and now we're promising a withdrawal of 100,000.
And he said, no, no question. You know, there was no doubt that when he got through that you would keep that too.
We're going to.
And he had a good chart there. He showed it in terms of men. A very large man representing what you had there when we came in.
Yeah.
Much smaller man.
And they all apparently were moved by the conclusion, huh?
Oh, the conclusion really gave everyone goosebumps.
Was damn good, actually, if I may say so.
Well, Mr.
I know what is good and what is not. That was pretty good.
It was your method of delivery, the sincerity, the strength, and
with no support.
With absolutely no support.
No, we won't get any now either.
And everyone, Well, I think this will appeal to the American people, but whatever.
Well, we may get some from the people, but I mean from the cabinet and that shit. If they don't support me for it, I don't give a goddamn with it. Mitchell, of course, is for me before Agnew's, before I talked to Agnew, and he was ecstatic. And naturally, I had
called up and said he thought it was terrific.
Did he?
Yeah.
Called you?
He called Haldeman.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to call him back. I didn't like his attitude today. I'm not going to call him back.
Oh, that was a cowardly.
He waited too late.
Yeah, that was not as strong.
What do you think? What do you think of him there today?
Oh, that was, he was coppering his best, and he was scared out of his mind.
But he liked it, huh?
Very much. Mr. President, there was no way not to like it. It was the best delivered speech, and it was one of those speeches which it read all right, but the way you delivered it was an absolute masterpiece.
That little conclusion, they'll all know who Kevin and Carl are, won't they?
And that's how they're carrying it.
Are they? Oh, are they? What do they say?
UPI are leading with that.
Yeah?
I don't have the text in front of me, but
that Kevin, they'll go back and get their pictures, and I hope the mother, goddammit, stands up and says, gee, don't just get out. I'd never check that, I don't know what she's going to say. Oh, she'll be all right. She's a wife of Marine.
She won't say that.
should be very proud, I think, that we're trying to do the right thing for her husband. That poor bastard, you know what he did? I checked. He ran in and threw a grenade into a goddamn machine gun and saved about 30 Marines that were wounded. Now, goddamn, why don't we be proud of that instead of talking about this goddamn Calley? It really burns me up. We have no pride, do we, anymore, Henry? Nobody's got any pride anymore. They don't care about that.
No real patriotism.
I'm glad I put in that. I think Haig was pleased, wasn't he, with what I defended the armed services? Was he or not?
Moved, and Haig called General Bennett, the director of Army Intelligence, who said he was choked up and he had to leave the room because he had tears in his eyes.
Good. All right, Henry. Thank you.
Good night, Mr. President.
Reverend Billy Graham off the line, sir.
Who?
Reverend Billy Graham.
Hello.
There you are.
Hello.
Mr. President?
Is this Billy?
This is Billy Graham.
How are you?
I want to tell you that that's by far the best anybody has done on Vietnam. And you had me in tears. I really feel that...
Well, I was in tears myself, Every time I think of that little Kevin and he saluted, it just broke me up.
Well, I think you even threw old Dan Rather off balance.
Yeah.
I thought it was just tremendous, and I just wanted to tell you that
Are you in Knoxville?
No, I'm still in Vero Beach, Florida.
Oh, yeah.
I've been down here about 5 weeks.
When are you going to your crusade in Kentucky?
Yes, that starts in about 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah, I see.
I have to go to California to deliver a couple of speeches first.
Right. But you felt it was the right thing. Of course, we're fighting a very tough battle here. Everybody wants to pull out, but I have to fight against the tide. I got to do the right thing.
I think you defused a lot of it tonight, though. I don't see what in the world they can say after tonight. I think that you've given some of people like me, you've given me something to hold on to and to really say. And I've got an editorial in the New York Times on Friday, which I wrote this morning. They had it
for you.
Yesterday.
Good.
And I'm putting all the blame of this whole thing on Kennedy.
That's right. He started the damn thing. He killed DM, and he sent the first 16,000 combat people there himself.
Well, I'm saying that the first time I ever heard of our involvement was 4 days before he was inaugurated, playing golf with him. He said, I quote, "We cannot allow Laos and South Vietnam to fall to the communists." And then I said when President Johnson took over, we had 16,000 troops there.
That's right.
And I said the political climate in the United States...
Well, and DM had been murdered. You see, Billy, the key thing here was Kennedy's, and I must say our friend Lodge's agreement to the murder of DM. DM, that's what killed that's opened the whole thing.
The whole thing. And I said this sentence, I said, many of the president's doves in the Senate were not then so dovish, even Senator Fulbright, who introduced the now famous Tonkin Resolution. And I got all that in there, and they've taken it. They're going to print it Friday morning.
Good. Well, anyway, I appreciate...
But I thought it was your sincerity and your manner of presentation was just excellent.
Yeah.
It was just wonderful. I was...
One thing, incidentally, I threw away the text at the last and talked about this little boy that came there. That little Kevin, when he saluted me, I damn near broke up.
I'm sure you did.
Well, you know how it is.
I sure did.
It's awful tough, isn't it?
Well, God bless you. You've got a lot of people praying for you.
Well, believe me, Billy, it means an awful lot. And you keep the faith, huh?
You betcha.
Keep the faith.
Sir. Bye.
Our folks, we're going to win. Yeah.
We have Dr. Kissinger. On the line, sir.
Hello, Henry.
Mr. President.
Are you out to dinner someplace?
I had dinner with the board of directors of the Rand Corporation, and I raised a little hell with them.
Oh, fine. Did you?
Yeah.
Well, that's good. It probably shook them up a little, didn't it?
Well, they had some people, they had some bankers and Bill Hewitt, Packett's partner.
Oh, yeah.
And and Webster from the New England Electric, head of New England Electric.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked mostly about Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
And they were generally positive.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you, we had this Illinois group tonight. Boy, they were about 40 business guys, and incidentally, Percy was there, as you know, and Elgeby.
Oh, yeah.
They were almost to a man had seen this and were really quite moved by the broadcast. They were...
Well, that was the reaction of my group, too, tonight.
They were, so shows we got... And in my little talk, I proceeded to talk a little about SST and say, I understand why some opposed it, but I said, let's not let this be a pattern of turning away from exploring the unknown, turning inward, not meeting our responsibilities in the world, and so forth and so on. I just thought it just couldn't let Percy sit there without...
No, I think that was important.
Yeah. Another interesting little thing. Mrs. Eisenhower called tonight. She said that she was, of course, like Brother, but she was told Julie that they had Mrs. Taylor and little Kevin on one of the news shows tonight.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Did you know that?
I didn't, but somebody at the dinner told me.
Uh-huh.
And that she mentioned that I had called to her.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And how honored she had been by your speech. That's what they told me.
Yeah. Well, that's of course, the best kind of a follow-up we could have on it, better than having some senator or congressman praising it, is to put that thing on and remind the people again of the, of the thing that they remember about it,
Exactly.
And, no, it's,
Well, I heard Eric Severide tonight at the tag end of the news.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, the president squarely put it up to Congress. If they want to assume responsibility, they can have it.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't think there would be many takers.
He didn't, or I didn't?
No, Severide didn't think there'd be many takers in Congress. Now, it shows the tremendous power of the presidency if it is used with courage and wisdom.
Yeah, and sometimes, particularly with the medium of television, where you can go directly to the people, not through the press, just whack it right out there. It'll give this press a little pause.
That's right.
Okay.
So far, I think the treatment has been enormously respectful.
Yeah. Well, they'll hack away now about the time, and do we have a date in mind, and all that sort of thing, and...
I think we shouldn't answer that, Mr. President.
I told Ziegler today that he should just, in the future, not say, look, the president is not going to... He stated his position, I'm not going to go beyond it, gentlemen.
Exactly.
And if any congressman or senator thinks that we got a date in mind, fine. But we're not going to say, because the point is, we may have a date in mind, but I'm keeping the option open of changing my mind in November.
Exactly.
That's the point, see, and that's what we keep the enemy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No,
but I wouldn't, because if you say too much, or if we say too much about the date, the next thing is we're abandoning the prisoners. That's going to drive the wives right up a wall.
Oh, hell yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
But I think it is now very well positioned.
But we just keep right where we are.
Exactly.
Don't move, and don't... I'm going to tell Ron in the morning not to take any more questions on it, and just say that we've covered the situation, and that we've stated a position, and we're not going to talk any more about it. We've made an announcement that runs through December 1st, and at that time, the president will have another announcement.
Yeah.
But he'll make it at that time, depending upon the circumstances then. And let him, well, will it be at this rate? It'll depend on the circumstances then. Well, do we have a date in mind? That'll depend on the circumstances then.
Exactly.
And that's the way to play it. Play a little.
So I think, and all, we have found that whatever we give, the doves will just go on to another position.
Isn't that the truth? Every time, don't they? It didn't really make any difference whether we could have gone to 90,000. It wouldn't have made any difference much.
Wouldn't have made any difference.
As it turns out, or we could have put it 100,000 in January. The same. Oh, it was a little better to have it than it was.
Well, it
showed progress.
It showed progress, Mr. President, but if we had gone up to 16,000, they still would have found fault with it.
Sure. It wouldn't have helped us a bit. Wouldn't have meant a bit. Not a bit. And that's just not going to be the way it's being played. Going to play it. I must say, we've some way or other you've got to get Laird in, sort of pipe down a little bit too about.
Well, I've scheduled a lunch with him next week. I'm going to get Laird quieted up.
Just say, no, look, Mel, it isn't going to do any good. And just say, might say, look, there is a chance for negotiation here. Now let's don't spoil it now.
Yeah. The only trouble is if he believes it, he'll try to hog it. But I'll get him quieted down by other methods. I'm just going to tell him he'll get himself into such unbelievable trouble.
Yeah.
Because I think he's shaken up a bit.
Do you?
Yeah. Mel is basically not a bad fellow.
He should also pipe down on the Calley thing. We got that in the right position. We're not defending Calley, and we're going to let it run its course. And when if he turns out the way we expect to, we'll just handle it that way. But let it drag on a while.
I think that's right, and I think the judicial process should now take its normal course there.
That's right.
And after that, you can decide in the light of all the information that will then have been developed.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So, and that public furor had to be quieted down.
That's right. Hello.
Dr. Kissinger calling you, Mr. President.
Yeah.
Mr. President.
Hello.
Mr. President?
Yeah, Henry.
I just wanted to mention a number of relatively minor things to you.
Yeah.
One is that the South Vietnamese are launching another one of these raid-type operations tonight.
Good.
This time, it's a more sizable one. There's a big sweep inside South Vietnam.
Good.
And then they're going to land some battalions in base area 611.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very useful to tie down the North Vietnamese.
Good.
And
is it well programmed and well supported and well planned?
Programmed and well supported, Mr. President, and I've called Moorer to say that we don't want any significant American losses in helicopters and
Right.
secondly, I talked today to this fellow Vorontsov from the Soviet Amb.
Right.
The reason was that there's a meeting between Russia and Abrasimov
Yes.
on Berlin, and I just wanted to make sure that they didn't blow, that they understood which way the channels were going.
Yes.
And
He understood that.
oh yeah, he understood it, and he said that Dobrynin was coming back Sunday with new instructions, and that we should take the Brezhnev speech very seriously, and he was slobbering all over me.
Good.
And
We'll see Sunday what he tells you.
And then I did something which was a little unorthodox. I told him that Dobrynin had given me his phone number in Moscow.
Mm-hmm.
So he called me up an hour, and I'd lost it, so he called me an hour later and said it might be a nice thing if I called Dobrynin and congratulated him on his Central Committee membership.
Good.
So in fact, I did it, and Dobrynin said, we'll have something on that exchange of letters when I come back.
He said that?
Yeah. He didn't say what it was.
Yeah.
And he also said he was coming with new instructions.
But not indicating anything on the summit thing.
Well, he couldn't, Mr. President, on an open telephone.
Oh, it's open telephone, okay.
Yeah, we don't have a secure line. We have the hotline, but I didn't want to use that.
Right.
This was a commercial phone.
Good.
And
But how'd he sound?
oh, he sounded, they're going to do something, Mr. President. And then finally, one other thing. I called Mike Mansfield on your behalf.
Just a second, hold it.
I called Mike Mansfield.
Yeah.
And told him that you had asked me to tell him about what you are announcing tomorrow in strictest confidence.
Right.
And I thought that he would have appreciated it. He was beside himself, very statesmanlike.
Was he?
President has his warm support and congratulations. And he said now he sees what you were talking about and when you were hinting at China policy.
Mm-hmm.
And of course he raised again his going there.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, we have it in mind.
And I thought, Mr. President, that tomorrow morning, if you agree, that perhaps McGregor might call Ford and Albert. That gives McGregor a little status and gives him something dovish to do.
Yeah.
And let State notify the Foreign Relations Committee.
McGregor also call Mahon. Mahon is a good man.
That's a good thing.
And let him hit, because he's the best man on that side.
Right.
And let's see, on our side, Scott.
Scott, he should call.
Yeah, he might as well.
Maybe Griffin.
Yeah, Scott and Griffin, yeah. And let's see, anybody else that... I think that's enough. Let's state and farm the others. Well, McGregor might call Aiken.
He's on the Foreign Relations Committee.
That's all right.
He'll probably think.
That's right. Let him call Aiken and let state handle the others.
Okay.
See?
Right.
Give Aiken a little brush. That's a good idea.
Good, Mr. President. I'll get that done.
Fine. Okay, Henry.
Right.
Thank you. Yeah.
I have Dr. Kissinger there, Mr. President.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. President?
Hello?
Mr. President.
Henry, you in New York or here?
No, I'm here.
Yeah. What's new? Anything this morning?
Nothing of very great consequence. In fact, there's nothing really going on. The Chinese keep needling the Russians, where they put out indications that they were easing their terms on diplomatic relations with us, half implying that maybe Taiwan wasn't a complete obstacle.
Yeah, I saw that.
And in Vietnam, activity is light at the moment. Abrams made an injudicious comment. Somebody asked him whether that...
Yeah, I saw that. I was wondering...
But basically, they tricked him into it. They said, is it possible that this drive will go into Laos? Well, actually, they are under strict orders, Mr. President. There will not be any of these horror stories coming out.
Yeah.
Because we won't use many helicopters.
Yeah.
And it has the advantage of tying down the North Vietnamese.
Yeah, I know, that's true, but Henry...
He should never have said it.
The orders have got to go out there that I want Abrams and Bunker to pipe down. I mean,
But I
just got to say, I mean, the thing is that this is what the press is trying to do, is that they want a story. It doesn't make any difference what he does. I don't care if he goes in and bombs the hell out of him, but don't say it. See, the press wants to put Vietnam back on the front page. Now they use this one little story. God damn it, they're in two papers at the front page, right?
That's right. I talked to Laird about it.
Does he understand it?
Oh, yeah. And he said he'd get right on the phone with Abrams.
Yeah.
And, when we wanted him to talk, he didn't, and now...
Well, he didn't... he really sucked into it. Some goddamn newspaper guy wanted to get a story to the effect that we were going back in Laos, because the news guys out there dying because Laos is over and the South Vietnamese held the hill, and now they're moving around and they're having their award ceremony, and I think they're just trying to suck poor old Abrams into a so, but he just feels so compelled to be so goddamn honest all the time. Why don't he just shut up?
That's right.
He says, well, he should just say, Jesus Christ, do what I say. Don't comment on that sort of stuff.
Exactly.
Dodge it.
That's what I told Laird. I said, there's no law against saying no comment.
That's right.
And I don't speculate on operations or anything like that. Instead of, if you say I don't rule it out, then the time they get through writing it, they're back in.
Yeah. Well,
although if one reads the actual stories, they're not written in a particularly inflammatory way.
Well, yes, but most don't, Henry. Most of them will see the little blip on television. General Abrams says we may go back into Laos. You see, that's what you must understand, that it doesn't make any difference what the actual stories say. It's what hits in that minute that people see on television.
No, you're absolutely right.
And the minute they see on television, well, General Abrams says we may go back into Laos. And everybody that was beginning to calm down over Laos, they get all stirred up about it again. Yeah, I don't ever mind people getting stirred up if we're going to do something,
That's right.
But God damn it, I don't want to do it when we just...
Besides, he's had his shot. Now, this is a time when the military gains are not going to be that crucial.
There aren't any more left to play, as he damn well knows. I mean, he had his shot, And he's not going to get any more.
We can do these harassing acts.
Oh, Christ, I know, but this is nothing compared to the others.
Exactly.
And he can't continue to talk about it.
Well, I think he'll get the point because later.
Well, they'll do it more this one, but I hope that they can now tell Ziegler if he gets any comment on that. Just not to say anything. I don't know. He can't say no comment. If he does, it'll build up the Abrams story. But he's got to. He simply says that there are no plans for any things. Now don't get the impression that by Abrams saying a silly thing like this, that's going to hold down the North Vietnamese. It isn't. Not no damn.
Well, there's no way planned, Mr. President.
I know, but my point is with Ziegler, then he should just say they have no plans.
That's right.
Now, don't you agree? He should nail the thing down. And
well, they are going to go over with raids, but there are no plans of anything of that scale before.
That's well, then better say that.
Right.
And better. What I meant is it's important to get across the idea that there are no large-scale operations in Laos are planned. Period.
That's right.
And because he's going across, you see, they only have 2 weeks left to do it anyway.
Yeah, well, they've got a little more in that area further south, but I think we should. I'll work something out along that line, Mr. President, and check it with you.
Well, just get it down to. I don't have to check with me. You know what we're trying to get at here.
Right.
Just calm it all. Just cool it down. What I mean is, I don't want Ziegler to make another story out of it.
Right.
He must not make another story out of it. See, if he comments, he'd say as little as he possibly can without making another story.
Exactly.
And don't. But remember that the whole purpose now is not to try to keep the North Vietnamese off balance. We got them off balance. Just the purpose now, by statements, the thing to do now is to keep our own people from getting stirred up about things we aren't going to do.
That's right.
See, that's the difference. When we are going to do something, then we have to pay the price of being stirred up anyway. But when we're not going to do something, we must not be forced to pay a price. That's what it really comes down to. And
right. I'll get that. I'll call Ziegler immediately.
Well, he'll probably have a query on it.
Well, I'll tell him.
And I'd simply tell him not to take any press calls today.
Right.
Tell the whole office not to take any. This is Sunday,
right.
And there's no press calls, and just say that he can't be reached. Just leave it a little bit dumb for a while. Maybe that's the best way to handle it. Or he says, well, and they'll wonder, well, I don't know that they will or not.
Well, let me find out first whether it has made any waves.
Yeah.
If it has, I'll get it dampened.
Well, I'll tell you what you do. You better give Ziegler a call, see the situation, and you better call me back, and we'll have to develop a thing. How's the plan? And what about the rest of the news? I only seen the front page. How's that China thing's being
very good,
very well?
Very good. And I saw last night on television, Martin Pogronsky had a panel of newsmen.
Yeah.
Sidey and Kilpatrick and
his usual group.
His usual group, and Sidey was just raving on about how your great initiative, and even Carl Rowan had to say some grudgingly favorable things.
Mm-hmm. Well, how'd Kilpatrick handle it?
Oh, very favorably, strangely enough.
He usually does anyway.
Yeah, no, he was very favorable. Then they talked about Hoover, and there Kilpatrick was the only one who stood up for him.
Oh, well, that's true, but they know damn well I have to stand up for it.
No, that didn't touch you.
No,
they didn't attack you on that.
Right. Did they use some of the news summary, did they use some of on the newscast, the stuff from the night before? Or
I frankly didn't see that.
You were looking at other things. That's good. All right. But looking at the papers today, what do they?
Oh no, they were carrying a lot of your stuff in the weeklies.
The balance was pretty good, is it?
Very good.
Yeah.
Very, very good. All of your stuff is exceptionally good.
In the weekly news summaries, you mean? Huh?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the China story is, of course, very big.
Yeah.
And very favorable to you. Everywhere.
You know, the thing I feel is this, that you'll probably see Dobrynin Tuesday, right, or Monday, maybe Monday.
Well, I'll see him, if he comes back. He'll come back either tonight or Wednesday night. Those are the only two flights they have this week.
Sure.
And it's just barely conceivable.
Probably Wednesday.
That this China thing kept him back a few days for reassessment.
Fine.
What I was thinking either tomorrow or Tuesday.
What I was thinking was this, and I don't know just quite how it'll work. I would delay your meeting with Bogdan until after you see him. All right. Or have you already set it up? No. Let me tell you why. After you see him, we may want to play a very different game. Let's suppose, for example, running it out, let us suppose that we get a straight cutoff. You see what I mean? Right. Then, instead of diddling around with this sort of thing, we might go immediately to the highest level. You see what I'm getting at? Oh, yes. And I don't mean on just and this time because we would have to play that kind of a game, and knowing the Asians, the way they operate, well, they will go like molasses on things of this sort. In a moment like this, they just might bite for the whole thing. You know what I mean? Right. Have it complete. And so rather than wasting anything, telling show and lie that we'd like to have Mansfield and Scott received and the rest, let's just wait. I think that's a good idea. Now, he's our best contact, isn't he, the Bogdan? We'd have to think about that. Well, what I was thinking was, are we sure then? Yeah. What I was thinking of was, how secure are their lines? They always send a messenger. Yeah, okay. That's fine then. I was going to say that they'll send a messenger. That's good. And they'll send a messenger to Bucharest, huh? Right. Well, that's good. I was going to say, otherwise we could send somebody to Bucharest. Well, another way of doing it is that when I go to talk to the North Vietnamese, I talk to the Chinese ambassador in Paris. Yeah. And get it set up that way. Yeah. Well, you see what I'm getting at. We may as well play our little games, or just forget what I told you to do about Bogdan right now, huh? Right, Mr. Gray. I don't think it's going to play that way. I think that the Russians are... they're going to come. They're going to come. But you know what I mean is that we now have got to we're playing for very high stakes, and we have very little time left, and we can't diddle around, with the Russians or anybody else. Right. Yeah, okay. Right, Mr. President. Hello? Mr. President. Hi, Henry. Sorry to disturb you. It's all right. No, I'm not doing anything. Well, two things. One, there's a lengthy article that TASS distributed on this Chinese relation to us, which is very interesting. They're saying that what China is trying to do is to get the United States and the Soviet Union into a war with each other, so that they could emerge as the great superpower, but we wouldn't fall for that. But they wouldn't fall for that. And very hurt. Very what? They seem to act very hurt. Yes. Very interesting, yeah. And just thought you might like to know that. Well, it's, what do you think it means? Well, I still am fairly optimistic that the Soviets will be fairly forthcoming. If not that, they're going to go very tough. I mean, they've got to break out one way or the other. Yeah. Also, I've had a letter from... Just a minute. Yeah. Raining? Okay, we skip it. Yeah, go ahead. I've had a letter from Sir Robert Thompson, which is very optimistic about how things are going. Good. What does he say? Well, he says that he doesn't think that the North Vietnamese can launch any major attack through 1972. He considers Laos was a great success. And I have to take him seriously, because he said the same thing last year, right after Cambodia. And I thought he was exaggerating. It turned out he was right. I'm having it summarized for you and sent to you. And, well, he certainly is going to give us his best judgment on this. I didn't even ask him for it. This is he volunteered it. Here it is.
He says, well, he's very violent about our critics.
Is he?
About our critics.
What's he say about them?
Well, he said they don't realize
that it was
so many of the critics in the United States do not realize that we are not dealing with the Arvin of 4 years ago, but with a new breed. They are now good professional soldiers and in combat commands lower down who have the training, the experience, the determination to match anything that the North Vietnamese can provide. Then he said,
coming from him, that's quite significant.
Exactly. And well, about Laos, he says, this brings one to the Laos operation, which have been the scene of some of the toughest fighting and worst reporting that I can remember.
And worst reporting, isn't it interesting?
I certainly think that the operation has achieved the shorter-term tactical aim of cutting the trail, in addition to destroying dumps already there, during what should have been its peak operating period. Publicly, one may have to be a bit cautious, but I would say that there's no possibility of the North Vietnamese mounting or sustaining any offensive against South Vietnam right through 1972, except in the immediate vicinity of the DMZ. It is going to be a case, just like Cambodia last year, of not seeing the real effects for several months.
I see. Well, it's good to get that kind of
And
appraisal.
Repeat, it's unsolicited.
That's right.
And he was there when it all happened.
He sure was, yeah.
We are having this breakfast, Mr. President, with
Laird, yeah.
And he will hit you about pulling out the Koreans. And I also think that that is an unnecessary strain to put on him.
Yeah.
They aren't very good, but they're at least holding some area.
And they're there, yes, that's right.
Now, Laird has the argument that we can get South Vietnamese more cheaply, but that's a purely theoretical argument. There aren't more South Vietnamese to be drafted. And you don't have to rule on that, but we have a review going on of the whole strategy, and you could just defer your decision until that review is completed.
Sure, I'll do that.
I would just be careful not to say anything that he can use
All right.
to pull them out. Because we're pulling things out just about as fast as they go now.
I'll say we are. Yeah. Yeah. How are the casualties running this week?
This week they seem to be lower, Mr. President. These are incomplete daily reports, but they seem to be lower this week. They are above 50, actually, going to be announced tomorrow, I think 56, for the week just concluded, and I think they'll be significantly lower next week. I know
56.
Yeah.
Well, why is that? Because of the...
well, that includes those 11.
Yeah. Be 56, you say.
I've asked Moore to give me some reason, some feel for why the casualties are running as they are. Of course, there are always some wounded that are left from a military operation.
But they'll run 56, you say, next week, this week.
This week. In the week after this, I think they'll be lower.
Well, we're in that week now. That's what I meant. That,
in the week at which we are, they'll be much lower than 56.
It would seem so.
Oh, yes. Well, we had on Sunday, there were none at all. And I just have to look at the daily figures, Mr. President. I don't have them
well, we can't
at my fingertips.
tell. Let's see, Thursday. We got 3 more days yet.
That's right.
Well, the drop may occur next week then, rather than this. Right. They won't. This week, of course, it won't be reflected, but next week it might be.
That's right, Mr. President. So it would be announced the day of your press conference, which wouldn't be bad.
That's right. Well, good. Don't worry, we'll handle Laird with great caution.
Right, Mr. President.
Okay.
I'll be there in the morning.
Yeah.
Mr. President?
Yeah.
Mr. Kissinger's calling you, sir.
Yeah.
There you are.
Hello.
Mr. President?
Yeah, hi, Henry.
I just wanted to call you to tell you I'd be thinking of you.
Oh, well, thank you.
All of you.
How's the weather out there?
It's perfect. I had lunch with Freeman Garston.
Oh, yeah.
Spoke of you with great affection.
Yes, he's a great fellow.
And I've been talking to Haig, and he's been telling me about what's gone on today.
Well, the main problem we have coming up is the POW problem.
No question. Right.
And so that we can therefore expect that probably will surface as an offer. And when that offer surfaces, that's going to be the hardest one for us to wheel. Do you understand?
Well, if the offer surfaces, I think we may have to go public with our offer.
Well, that's what I mean. We may have to go public with it, but that means that the timetable for...
fail.
Huh?
That means it may fail.
Yeah. You mean our offer of a ceasefire and a POW?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in any event, the main point is that the date for your talking, I don't know, what is the time you've set for it now?
Well...
What time have you offered?
I've offered the 9th, but I suspect it now that they told us right away that on the 9th, Xuan Thuy was out of town.
Yeah.
So I think they'll offer the 16th.
Well, you see, that may be too late. So if it is, we'll just have to go with something else. See what I mean? If we may be put to the torch on this one. This is the hardest one.
I don't think they'll surface it that straight. They're playing a very clever game on this as always.
Yeah. Well, maybe so. The main thing is we just got to hold our people in line if we can until we get a chance at them. But it's very possible you're not going to get a chance at them. We just have to go the other roads. And then that means that what we do is just surface our own offer and let it go at that.
That's right.
And
it's a less elegant way of doing it, and probably means that we get turned down right away.
Oh, of course. But it just may be we have to do it, though. You see, you see, we can't get run out. That's my point.
That's right. No, if they make it as a formal offer, Mr. President, then my guess is that what we will have to do is for you to make a speech indicating what we are willing to do.
Yeah.
Or respond in a formal way.
Yeah. Well, we haven't got it yet. We'll see what they do. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
I think they'll make it.
We'll see. I hope not. Thank you.
Right, Mr. President.
Hello.
General Haig, sir. Ready.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Al. What about the casualties last week? You got the figure yet?
No, sir, but I think it's going to be quite low. It should be as last week or better.
Yeah, because it should be less than 20, I would think. Yeah.
So it'll be very.
When do you get that? Will you know?
We don't get it officially till Monday afternoon, but we can get a reading on it.
Right. Well, Monday afternoon officially. Well, let's wait till then. Fine. Okay. Nothing else of interest in the world
Yes,
today?
sir. Very significant. This goddamn New York Times expose of the most highly classified documents of the war.
Oh, that. I see. I didn't read the story, but you mean that was leaked out of the Pentagon?
Sir, the whole study that was done for McNamara and then carried on after McNamara left by Clifford and the peaceniks over there. This is a devastating security breach of the greatest magnitude of anything I've ever seen.
Well, what's being done about it then? I mean, I didn't... did we know this was coming out?
No, we did not, sir.
Yeah.
There are just a few copies of this.
Well, what about the
volume report?
Well, what about the? Let me ask you this though. What about Laird? What's he going to do about it? Now I just start right at the top and fire some people. I mean, whatever department it came out of, I'd fire the top guy.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm sure it came from defense, and I'm sure it was stolen at the time of the turnover of the administration.
Oh, it's 2 years old then.
I'm sure it is, and they've been holding it for a juicy time, and I think they've thrown it out to affect Hatfield McGovern. That's my own estimate. But it's something that it's a mixed bag. It's a tough attack on Kennedy. It shows that the genesis of the war really occurred during the 61
Yeah, that's Clifford. I see.
And it's brutal on President Johnson. They're going to end up in a massive gut fight in the Democratic Party on this thing.
Are they?
There's some very...
But also massive against the war.
Against the war.
But it's a Pentagon study, huh? Hello,
Mr. President.
Hello, Henry. I think it's important that you give Rostow a call. Let me tell you the problem. He's advising Johnson against doing a press thing. I think they've got to be told very directly that tomorrow I'll have 200 press in Rochester, that I am prepared and I intend to defend Johnson on this whole thing, but that I can't do it unless he's prepared to defend himself. And that what they're trying to do, Henry, is just to let us take the heat on this thing. None of their people are speaking up. Now, you call him and you tell him that I think that...
I think he's in Newport right now.
I don't care where he is. Call him and tell who is. Johnson?
No, Rostow.
You call Rostow. He ought to get a hold of Johnson. He's advising Johnson against this. Johnson ought to have a press conference. Now, we need it for reasons that you are, I'm sure, quite aware of.
Well, I'm aware of it, Mr. President, but I talked to Bill Jordan and Tom Johnson yesterday on the same topic.
Yeah.
And I just don't think the information is quite so correct, but I'll call Rostow this minute.
You don't think it's correct that he's...
I don't
think he's going to have one.
I believe he has no intention of having one. I don't believe that Rostow is the chief obstacle. I just don't think he wants to have one.
Why?
I will call him.
Why won't he have one?
Well, what I didn't discuss at press conference, I said that there should be some statements and some activity from them. And they said, since they will...
Well, you ought to tell Rostow this, that unless he has a press conference, I'm not prepared to defend him. Not just as cold as that. They've just got to know. I'm not going to defend him. Why should I?
Well, I don't think you should defend Johnson anyway. I think you should defend the presidency. I don't think you should get into the issue.
I'm not going to, but on the other hand, it amounts to a defense of Johnson. You know, when you really get down to it, they say, I don't think this is proper, you know, to put one side of the case out rather and not up the whole case and that sort of thing. That's defending Johnson.
Sure, Mr. President. I will call Rostow about the press conferencing, but I think you should concentrate on this, on the theft of documents and on the unconscionable way of attacking somebody without giving him any chance of rebuttal, explaining where the documents came from and so forth. That, I think, is unanswerable. When we say out of context, then they'll say, well, why don't you supply the context?
Well, I'd chat with Rostow a bit about it, see if he is...
I will chat with Rostow.
Harlow's report is that Rostow is advising against it, so let's see what he says, okay?
I will call him.
Because Johnson should go to the mat on this. He really should. He should speak up. Don't you think so?
Well...
Not for his interest, but for ours.
Sure. Frankly, I think they're also eager to... well, it would certainly get a tremendous brawl started between Johnson and the press.
That's right. And it'd get off of us. You see what I mean?
It would get it off us on the immediate problem, but it would also drag the whole issue down to the level of was Johnson guilty or not.
That's a hell of a lot better than having whether I was guilty or not, Henry. That's my point. We've got to get the...
I honestly believe that this episode can be turned into an asset if we go on the offensive and say that these people are deliberately undermining confidence in government. And that's what it's all about, that what you are resisting is the flouting of laws and the principle that the end justifies the means and the so-called higher morality. I simply don't find this... I just had Jerry Schechter in here from Time. Now, I know they never write it the way they talk.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I immediately go on the attack. I said, now, I just don't understand how you people can even... He began by saying, how do we know you people aren't doing the same thing? And I said, don't you give me that language. I said, how do I know you're not stealing papers all over the place? and they don't feel at all confident of themselves. I have yet to meet a newsman who really is sticking to the Times for anything other than guilt loyalty. But I may not see a representative sample.
Well, I just want to be sure Rostow doesn't...
But I will talk to Rostow and tell him...
Well, chat with him about it. See what he thinks, and let me know what he let me know what he says. Okay.
Right, Mr. President.
Hello. Yes, sir. Yeah, I will be back about 12 o'clock or 12:15 from Camp David. I was coming back anyway, and I thought that we could get together over at the EOB then and sort of talk this thing out a bit. Fine, sir. You free at that point? Oh, absolutely. Okay, and have you done any further thinking on... Yes, I think... Have you talked to Dobrynin again or not? I've got to call into him. He went out for... Now, the only thing that I was thinking there, if you want to play it at a higher level, I almost think I might have to talk to him at this point. In other words, to keep this lid on. Yeah. And I will do it. I mean, what I have in mind is this. I think we just simply have to tell him that, Mr. Ambassador, because of what happened and because of your people blowing this, I mean, then show him the papers. But this is, Q has reacted as we would expect negatively. We had it all set because, that is, he was, so that he could play a part in it. But they're going to have a victory celebration. They played this, he put the whole thing out, and now he's thrown up his hands. Now, we do not think this is permanent. We think we can handle it. But the main thing is that, two things. One, we will settle on the basis that we have described. Two, we have to have the time to settle, and you must not push us. And three, you need not be concerned about the election deadline. Remember, because he knows that, and that's a total commitment that you can pass on. Right. I'm not sure I would go far. My commitment to go along the route outline, because he knows that without you there is no commitment. Well, I see your point. Well, that'd be dumping him. Yeah. Tell him we will say basically on all the military sides and so forth and so on. That's a deal, and we're ready to. Right. And we'll see, and we'll work with you to see what we can work out. We may have to go our own. We understand that we'll have to go our own way, but we haven't given up on Q. We're still working on it. We're still working on it, but we've got to put the lid on this thing and hold it. That's right, and we need and just say that our relations, the two great powers, must not be affected by the fact that these two pipsqueaks are acting the way they are. And that now let's keep our heads, and you keep theirs down, and we'll keep his down. But that's the responsibility. I really feel that that if I told him that could have quite an impact on him. Yes, I do too. So you think about it, and I'll be there at 12:15. Okay. And if we think well of it, we'll call him in and just lay it out like that. But we'll talk it through first. Fine. Sure. But you had no other thoughts, and since we've talked. The other thing is that I've done a little more thinking about one thing. I am just really adamant on Henry not going to Hanoi with this thing in mind, because basically the way it'll look is a complete surrender. Yep. You know what I mean? It'll be played that way, and also it'll look like Ramsey Clark going to Hanoi, hat in hand, making their deal. Sure, we're going to get the prisoners back, and sure, but they'll say, what the hell have we fought for? The prisoners? I agree. You see the problem? Oh, absolutely. His going to Hanoi can do it. Now, I think however, a part of the game plan, he can make a commitment to go to Hanoi later. Yeah. Say, all right, let's meet in Paris, and then he'll come to Hanoi later. Exactly. And then there's no problem, but it must not be before the election. It must not be. Third point is this. I strongly feel that if we could make the case that we really would prefer not to do this before the election. I mean, not just politically, but not to do it, because basically one hell of a lot of people in this country, and frankly in Vietnam, South particularly, think that we are doing the wrong thing because of the election. Exactly. And I just think we ought to say, no, we're just not going to be doing it. But I think that point has just got to be made, that this isn't the right time. That's right. No, this is right, and in many respects, this has pulled us back from what could have been a more troublesome wicket. Yeah. Who knows? Right. But we're going to work it out in the end. The main point is we've come a long way on these negotiations, as you well know. be ended, Al. And we're now at the point where we've got a basis for ending it. We know that the enemy's hurting, or they wouldn't be talking. The Soviets helping. In other words, they haven't got all the cards either. And we're still bombing. And that's the way it's going to be. And so therefore we'll end it. But I think the sad part of it is that I just don't know how South Vietnam, I don't see any leadership other than Pew. I don't see any other horse. But looking to do you see the M syndrome starting again?
No, he's going to come out of this very, very strong.
Pew will.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know. But then what happens? How can it be strong if we cut off assistance to him?
Well, what we've got to do is work with the same parameters we've put on the military side and keep the economic in.
In other words,
maybe we can work another deal with Hanoi.
With Hanoi, without the political?
Without the political. They're hurting so badly.
Maybe.
They may pay the price.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Mr. President, I have Dr. Kissinger calling you now.
Fine.
Thank you. President on the line, sir.
Hi, Henry. Mr. President, you in New York or Washington? No, I'm here. Oh, fine. I'm just back dictating about scores of letters to my friends. Boy, I'm telling you, nobody knows after an election how much you got to do in that. I got to work that in my spare time, but I had to come down here to finish off a lot of them. I had a very nice letter from Ben Gurion, you know. Oh, isn't that nice? I wrote him a note, and he, with his great sense of history, he didn't talk about Vietnam or the other thing. He said the greatest moment was China, and he said because by that you may help to bring about the day when the peoples of the world can, well, he didn't put it this way, I did, people of the world can be friends and so forth, you know, but I mean, but the old man's like an Old Testament prophet. Do you know him? Yes, he's a remarkable man. Yeah. Yes, I've met him. Go ahead, what do you have? We've also had a really very warm letter which I'm sending to you from McCloy. Oh, yeah. Which compares what you went through with what Lincoln went through during the Civil War. And their version of the doves. I've sent it over to you. And you might want to take a look at it. What I wanted to mention and check with you is we had a phone call from Bunker. We haven't had the actual message yet, saying that now apparently the South Vietnamese are beginning to kick over the traces again. Oh, Christ. And I believe that we just have to continue now and get the best agreement we can. Yeah. And then face them with it afterwards. How are they kicking it over? Well, they've apparently submitted a memorandum to him. But he just said the news is not good, and their ambassador here has also raised some questions. With Sullivan. It's their old pattern. What they always do is they first read what you give them, then they raise a few technical objections, and then they just keep escalating it. But, well, shall I send them another letter? No, I think we now have to wait, Mr. President, until we see at least what's going to happen in Paris. And once we have the text of an agreement in Paris, we'll have a new situation. So Bunker says that they're kicking over the traces and just being unreasonable as hell. Is that it? That seems to be the case. But we can't delay the negotiation, and we can't tell Hanoi that we're having trouble. No, sir. We're going to play it like an accordion. All right. When you really come down to it, though, I just can't see how Chew's got any other choice. God damn it. We've told him we're doing everything we can, and that's going to be it. Well, but on the other hand, the idea of just making a bilateral thing, Henry, is it's repugnant. It's repugnant because we lose everything we've done. You know what I mean? People said we could have done that years ago. Well, if we can get a ceasefire in Laos and Cambodia, and we can, of course, say we've put them in a position where they can defend themselves. But it's going to be a miserable exercise. Well, it may not be. You just can't tell. We do it bilaterally. I mean, this may be, this may be bargaining on their part, knowing that you're going to Paris.
basically, I really don't know where the hell they're going to go. And they're still making all the preparations as if there will be a ceasefire.
Right. I know, sir.
But I just wanted to check with you whether it is in accord with your views that we proceed negotiating. We can't wait any longer for coordinating.
Well, what would be the choice otherwise? I mean, you wouldn't go?
That's right, and ask for another delay, but I think that's almost impossible.
Well, you couldn't do that.
I mean, not after we all announced it.
But I would simply go. You mean they don't you really think they're trying to strengthen the bargaining position before you go to Paris, isn't that? Or
I think that's one possibility, that they're just trying to prove that if they're going to cave, they're going to do it afterwards, not before. And probably that they figure since they'll get less than what they agreed to, they better ask for more.
Well, I think you tell Bunker to play it damn tough. He is, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. In which Sihanouk says that his interests were completely sold out by the North Vietnamese. He said this to the Algerian ambassador, and it was one of the most shocking examples. And it's an example of U.S.-Soviet pressure, and that it's the Soviets who pressed the North Vietnamese into yielding.
Yeah. Well, go right ahead on the same track. Do the very best that you can. Haig has no doubts about going ahead now, does he?
Oh, no, he's completely with us.
And feels that we have to do it. And,
Haig is against an open break with them before the negotiation, as I am.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, go negotiate now. But when they kick over the treaty, they're making public statements?
No. This is a private communication.
Yeah. All right, just go ahead. Do the very best you can. Get the very best agreement you can. That's all. Is that okay?
Okay, Mr.
Fine, Henry, fine.
Good morning, Mr. President.
I hope we didn't get you up too early.
No, thank you. No, you see, now is the time we have to be early.
That's right. Mr. Ambassador, I had a couple of personal things and then one substantive thing I wanted to talk to you about briefly, if I could.
Yes, of course.
First, to thank you for the very gracious way that you and Mrs. Dobrynin are helping our children on their trip. They're looking forward to it. It'll be the high point of their travel, and I just hope they aren't too much bother to your people.
Oh, they're really nice kids, really very nice. We enjoyed being with them the whole evening. Really.
Well, they told me, and they just had a wonderful time, the movies and everything, and
even
they'll be good representatives over there. And
I'm sure about it, no doubt. And Mr. President, if I discussed with him when I was in Moscow, he really will take care of it.
Oh, yes.
He asked me to tell you that he will take care about it, so everything will go all right. You shouldn't bother.
Who will? Yeah. Right.
So we will settle this.
All right.
Yeah.
The second point is that I wanted to thank you for, as you know, I'm sitting very much on top of these negotiations and so forth, and I want to thank you for the work that you have done, you and your government, and without you and your government, well, you know, we've got our problem, and I've handled that personally, as you know.
I know. We feel it's really it's a good thing to do.
I've gotten that coming along, although it's tough. I mean, I must say it's tough.
Yes.
But you and your government have the other problem. Now, basically, there's really only one issue left.
Yeah.
And it's the issue really is to me it's hard. I just think very, very hard for me to understand how they can go back on what we had agreed on October 8th. And, I just have to take a position on that, which is I want you to know that I'm not doing it in order to want to give you an impossible problem, but I've had to put some impossible problems to you, like the withdrawal of forces, and I've done it. And on this one, like the DMZ, you and I know what the DMZ means. Symbolically, we know also what it means as a matter of fact. And on this one, we just can't let these talks fail for that one item. And I just wanted you to know that that when Haig reported to me about some compromise language, I said that just wouldn't do. I just think we have to have we agreed to this language long ago. It's the right kind of language, and I just want you to know that hear it directly from me. You see?
Yes, I do.
Now I don't say this for the purpose of I'll never do this because let me put it quite candidly. Mr. Brezhnev and I and your government and I, we got bigger fish to fry than this damn thing.
Exactly.
The main thing is to get this one out of the damn frying pan so that we can get busy on with other things. We'll go on with the other things anyway. You understand, not that.
Yeah, I understand.
But this always is an irritant. And now is the opportunity, and frankly, I think the biggest step toward the great goal that Mr. Brezhnev and I are working together, and that you and Henry and all of us have been working for, is to get this thing out of the way, and out of the way tomorrow. But we just can't let this one clause where we had agreed on a clause, and then it turned around. We just can't get it to turn to stop it. I just want you to know how I felt about it, and if you would convey it, I would appreciate it.
I will definitely, and thank you very much, Mr.
And I'd just like to take 1 minute. Al Haig is here with me, and if there's he's listening, and he has any technical thing to add, I'll have him say a word to you. And I'll stay on the line with you. Do you have another minute?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
All right, here's Haig.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. And on the first point, that's a little pleasure. On the second, I will send immediately to Mr. President.
Fine.
Yes, thank you very much.
Good, Mr. Ambassador. This was the issue I told you this morning.
So if I understand correctly, the compromise you proposed is not good, so you're coming to that one, which was before, yes?
Yes,
but you see, Mr. Ambassador, the compromise was something that, Henry, everybody, they all get tired and they say, well, we'll compromise. Then he hadn't recognized with the fact that I've got, I got to get the other people in line. And I just the compromise won't do. We just and it isn't all that important. Hell, the DMZ is there. It's written into everything, and so to put in some language about whether civilians move across or this or that, I think it's just nonsense. Really, to have a talk breakdown about such a small issue.
Yeah, I understand.
See, that's my feeling, and I want you to know how that I felt here, that we just had to. We're going to have to insist tomorrow on the original language. I just want you to know that if that is done, then we're going to be able to do other things.
Yeah, I understand.
Very important, because when we come right down to it, let's look at it. North Vietnam is a drag on you like it is on us. Then I can get into the Congress, and I can get some of that economic assistance and so forth that they need, and I can do it with on a strong positive note, which I want to do, because I just this is no thought of defeating anybody or anything. It's going to be one of those things where neither side, both sides will claim victory, neither will have it. But the main thing is that it will. What we're trying to do here, Mr. Ambassador, is to accomplish what I know what you want and we want. We want to remove this irritant between our relations. That's the real thing. We can't allow this damn place to interfere in the relations between the Soviet Union and the United States. That's really what it gets down to.
And this is what our approach to is. This is exactly. Only one question, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
You referred to understanding or the formulation of October 8th, but my impression that this question of DMZ really arises only on a previous session, which was 2 weeks ago. So
that's right. That October 26th. Yeah, I'm sorry.
So it was not
I had my day wrong. October 26th is what if I said October, I meant October 26th.
When they have a last previous one.
That's right. It was the October 26th one. That's what I meant.
I see.
No, the October 8 one was the first one before they got this held out.
Then it was when they have a next meeting. I think it wasn't really even in November.
Right.
Yes, and then previous one.
Right. I know.
It's clear.
But the point is that we came to that position. We had an agreement on it, and then now they...
Yes, you just want to have that agreement which was...
Right. And we just want to go to the language that we did agree to at one point and just have it done with, and then I can assure you, you'll have every possible support from our side, and we would hope also from your side.
Yeah, I understand. The only thing is it's now rather... time is left. In Moscow it's already midnight.
Yeah.
The meeting will be tomorrow morning, so it's rather short time. You understand what I mean? It's physical possibilities to reach it. Now it's in Moscow.
Well, could we get...
so maybe they...
Al, could we go to 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon?
Something maybe...
I'll tell you what we'll do. Let me see if I can get Henry to have the meeting at 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Would that be better?
Yes, because I think it's a little bit better, but still maybe even in the evening, because now I have to send Moscow they have to head to Hanoi. You understand? It's a long way.
Yeah.
And from Hanoi to Paris, it's time.
I get it.
So it's very...
All right, I'll...
get it in a few hours.
I'll get at that right now. They're working on technical details anyway. We'll just say they do.
They might have, but then we wait a little bit earlier. I don't know what will be the final result.
They could meet by, say, 3 or 4 in the afternoon.
Yes, I'm sure that my government will interfere, but I don't know what will be the final response of Hanoi.
I understand.
Yes, but...
and I can assure you that when I talk to Saigon, I can't tell you what they're going to do either.
But I would like to have a time, because I know for my government to have a time to be in communication with Hanoi.
But I just wanted to know how strongly I felt. It isn't a matter of... with me of trying to embarrass or humiliate, but it's just one of those things that this is what's going to make or break the deal.
Yeah, this is true.
Okay?
Yes, okay.
All right.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye, Mr. President.